Hello and welcome to this week's Leaders Who Last, where we explore the experience that is burnout in the hellscape that is 2025. Welcome, I'm your host, Elena Joy. My pronouns are she, her. I am the CEO of Latitude, where we help organizations build sustainable leadership pipelines. I am joined today by the amazing Terry Flores, who is an HR lawyer in Southern Arizona, as well has been a CEO coach, as well as been an interim CEO. Terry, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so glad you're here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to speak with you today.
Yes, and you are the perfect person to get into this very nuanced topic. It's kind of gray, but I think it's really, really important. And it's this idea that we have leaders who, right, we come up through staff and management, and hopefully we get to that executive level where instead of managing the finite details, we have more of a visionary role. We have to maintain that big picture, and we have to lead the people through a lot of different challenges. And I have found that there are sometimes leaders who bring old habits with them into this position, and they end up performing as what they think a leader should act and speak and look like versus just being who they are. Have you noticed that as you've been coaching leaders?
That's pretty textbook what you just described. They bring what they know. Talented people tend to be really good at a thing, whatever it is that they're performing for their organization or in their industry. And as that talent proficiency just starts to build, layer upon layer, they're very believable. Maybe they're charismatic. Uh, so many things start to layer up, and it's clear that they're ready for something more. Either they tell themselves, it's my turn. I'm going to start aspiring to these executive roles. I'm going to be the CEO someday. Or they're spotted as talent by somebody with power and influence, and then they are fostered and guided to become a leader. The ones who kind of anoint themselves as ready tend to be the ones who are leading for the sake of the title, don't know how to leave behind their highest accomplishment so far, which is the thing that made that we're so good at that people notice them for. And those leaders are the ones who are slower to realize that leadership is not at all what you think it is. And it's going to involve a lot more vulnerability, authenticity, resilience, compassion. I mean, I'm not talking just empathy. I mean, full on compassion for humans in front of you and the effect of your words and decisions on them. And the other ones who are talent identified by already people who are already accomplished executives, they at least have a pathway, and they also have somebody telling them, no, that's not what it's about, or that didn't go well, and here's why. If you don't have that, you're going to be feeling your way through. And that can come at a high cost for organizations, for the individuals. It's very rough to learn that way. So
I think you pointed out something that I didn't connect the dots until this very moment. I speak quite a bit when I'm doing leadership trainings around the skills that many of our Gen X leaders and our older millennial leaders, they need these different set of skills to really be able to lead and relate to the younger millennials and the Gen Z employees. And by the end of this decade, Gen Z is going to be 1/3 of our workforce. And so I'm thinking, are you starting to see new executives who have learned from older leaders, possibly boomer leaders, and they are kind of performing that style of leadership kind of to their detriment? Are you seeing that at all?
I'm seeing a little bit of that. Mostly what I see in younger leaders is an unwillingness to lead as other people have led. The problem,
So it's really
absolute rejection. The problem with that is it's unintentionally exclusive. And it tends to be, I don't think it's intentionally so, but it tends to be ego-driven leadership, which is a short road. And it's not because you're a bad person or you can't get over yourself. It's because of the lack of openness to something that is different from what you've become used to, because, this is my generation and this is how it's going to be. It's like, well, there are a lot of different people in the workplace, and also who are your clients, who are your beneficiaries, who is your market. If in fact you only want it to be like you, then you'll probably be okay, but I'm not sure how successful you'll be. But if you want it to be successful, you gotta open wider. And that can be hard for people who many of them just can't relate to things that they identify with their parents or grandparents or what have you. Mm-hmm. So that being said, I've worked with some younger, shiny and new, no scratches, no dents CEOs. And the fact that they were open to getting some coaching, or if their board brings me in and it's like, well, let's just talk. Let's see what's going well for you. Let's see where you're getting your intended outcomes and where you're not, and let's explore. When I take that approach, it tends to move us someplace, but it can't be, the neuroscience tells us when you try to convince, it's not going to happen. But when you try to influence and find someplace where you can actually relate to each other, we can get somewhere.
Which is exactly what those leaders have to do to be that authentic leader, right? Exactly what you're doing with them. They need to be able to build that skill as well. And I love that you have shared your lived experience, that it's not necessarily about the generation that the leader is from. It's more about how open are they to the validity of other people's experiences.
And that is not just limited to the shiny and new CEOs. There are some people who are simply, they're new to the CEO level, but they could be, anything from on the cusp Gen X all the way down to on the cusp Zennials. And a lot of the things that maybe we don't love about ourselves can show up when we're insecure in our leadership skills. A lot of things that we're overconfident about can show up when we are not pausing to read the room around us, or to read the situation, or to read the staff. If the staff don't see you showing up both authentically and with a sense of that they're going to be safe in your hands. If they don't feel like they're going to be safe in your hands and you're being authentic, it'll be difficult for them to connect with you, no matter what your age and no matter what your skill set.
That safety, that psychological safety that any leader needs as a baseline to be successful with their people, hence a leader, that is such a crux of it. Just last year, Latitude was a DEI consulting company. We were all about inclusive leadership, and inclusive leadership was defined by the amount of psychological safety you could establish in your organization. And when we made that switch due to the new administration over to sustainable leadership, it wasn't that hard, because we really are seeing the exact same thing is needed. If you want to be a leader who lasts, whether that is preventing burnout or lasting in your career because of your effectiveness and your impact, you have to be able to establish that psychological safety.
Yeah.
It's critical.
And that's because that's like, it's just like going 100 miles an hour for your body, for your nervous system, and for your brain constantly. If you don't feel safe, if you don't sense even administrative competence in your CEO, are they running the place in a way so that we'll still have money and I'll still have benefits and payroll? Are they fair-minded, or are they letting the person who gets away with all kinds of garbage actually do the thing they do? And is my job safe? Am I going to be treated fairly? Are other people getting treated fairly? Your staff see all of it, and they're watching you for every bit of it, because what you allow and don't allow is feedback to them. How you respond and don't respond is feedback to them. You're in a constant state of providing feedback. And if you don't maintain a certain amount of awareness of that, I think that is often the thing that even a pretty darn good leader can trip over. You have to remember your impact.
It's so true. And I think the next step in that conversation, Diana Charbonneau was just on the show a few episodes ago. And we were talking about that myth of the perfect leader, that there's this idea that once you're in this certain position, then you are always on it. You are always even keeled. You are always essentially perfect. And it makes sense why that is out there and why that is in our brains, because we do feel everything we do is feedback, right? And so we want to make it as positive as possible. And what I think we're finding is that if we want to be sustainable in our leadership, it's recognizing that everything we do is feedback to our organization, and therefore the need to be transparent and human versus perfect, because you're not going to last if you're trying to be perfect. And if you expect your people to try to be perfect the way you're trying to be perfect, they're not going to last either.
We have to give them permission to show up as who they are. Forgive me, I didn't mean to step on your statement.
No, exactly. You've got to give them that psychological safety to show up as you are. Do you have that psychological safety within yourself? Can you show up as you are to work? And then do you create that safety for your employees to show up as they are for work?
Whenever I'm brought in as an interim CEO, you get your scope of work from the board that brings you in. And there's that. But then there are these humans in front of you. And usually I'm brought in to a group of very traumatized humans. Sometimes they're angry, sometimes they're unsure, but I'm usually brought in after things have gone poorly. And I'm expected to knit those teams back together, build a culture of positive, build a workable culture, like where people can come to work and be fine. We're not expecting miracles in 6 to 9 months. We want to get to functional fine, and we feel pretty darn good. And also clear the runway for the incoming CEO, because the search is going on in the background. And when I meet with the executive leadership team, I just make it clear from the very beginning. I'm going to tell you right now, transparency is my highest priority. I'm an absolute dork, and I will be dropping in the most ridiculous references. I don't expect you to follow along, but yeah, we're going to go Tolkien. We're going to go Harry Potter. We're going to go Star Trek, all the versions. And it's just going to happen. But I'm a big dork, but I'm here to work, and we're going to work together. So be prepared. It's going to be nerdy, and I'll be transparent, and I'm going to expect it from all of you. Not nerdy, but transparent. And then we go from there. And then we go from there. And I just tell them, I am going to err on the side of being dorky, or I will hope to not be cringy, but I would rather be clumsy and authentic than too polished, because I'm not good at being too polished, and I don't think it actually gets me anywhere. And then they go, okay. And then some of them trust right away. Others are harder to come to trust. But thus far, for the work that I've done, I've been able to create genuine connection with people, and we stay in touch afterwards. And I try to help them after I leave if they, need me to look at resumes or just to provide a voice to help. And I think that that's the way it can help people. Leadership should be about helping people. If you don't have a desire to actually be helpful, then what are you doing?
What are you doing? It is so true. Oh my goodness. Okay, I would love to ask you, and apologies that this is a little bit on the fly, but I'm thinking about how there's been such movement in the workforce, especially middle management to executive level, right? There's just been so much movement, and most of my clients have C-suites with very new team members on that C-suite team, right? And I'm thinking about those older members that might be serving in the C-suite, and looking at those newer ones, and what might they be seeing if this person is performing leadership rather than tapping into their authentic, transparent leadership that is going to create that psychological safety? What might the other people in the executive suite see that would show that that's going on?
Well, I think that when you're shiny and new, all you have is performance until you have experience, and that's not a crime. It's what is the environment that you're in? Is it a no judgment zone where you're free to learn? And the leader, the CEO, has to create that. This is a judgment-free zone. Of course, if errors are going to happen, we're going to deal with them. But as humans, we're all going to learn together. And if the more seasoned C-suite feel pretty good about their relationship with their CEO and good about their jobs, they can find room for grace and even guidance for those who are new. But if there's hostility between them, I think it belongs to the CEO.
Thank you. This is why I love chatting with Terry, because it's so clear. Everything you teach is so clear, and there's no fluff around it. And I think that that's part of who you are, right? You are that transparent, clear leader.
I am so weird.
Weird only because there's not many of them. I love it. All right, Terry. Well, our last question for today is the same question we ask every guest. At Latitude, we consider joy a burnout prevention strategy, not just an outcome. And so we'd love to just chat real quick about how are we pursuing joy these days to prevent burnout. And I think for me, I'm getting really excited because we're getting into the summer and I'm going to be fly fishing as much as I can this summer. It's been really busy the last few summers with kids at home and everything. But this summer, they're really getting independent. They're not needing me as much. And instead of being sad about that, I think I'm going to try to find as many times to go fly fishing as I possibly can.
Wow. Yes. That's going to be glorious. Montana, Wyoming.
I mean, at least up to the Whites,
Colorado,
right? At least up to New Mexico and Colorado, the Durango area and Pagosa Springs and such. Like, that's my goal.
Pagosa, yeah, you're going to be really happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Congratulations.
How are you pursuing joy these days?
Truthfully, I work a lot, but I feel a lot of joy in my work. And that's one thing, I get a lot of flack from people who love me and that I work too much, but I do get joy from helping others, and my work is intended to be helpful. Even though sometimes it's uncomfortable work, but being good at uncomfortable is helpful. So I get joy from helping new clients, and I've had a nice slew of new ones. And I returned to full-on formal yoga practice after something like 15 years. I mostly do weight training, which I adore, but finally returning to yoga, and it turns out I still got the moves and I have the strength, but it was like taking a hedgehog to ballet class. It was a moment, but I mastered it and I had the strength and I got through the class, and it was a hot yoga class. So that's my new joy, hedgehog ballerina at yoga.
Are you still doing hot yoga? I can't believe you re-entered it with hot yoga.
It's mildly warm yoga. It's 80 degrees. It's not Bikram. It's not Bikram. It's just that it felt hot in the room, and it was like, oh, why? Where's the fan?
I'm never gonna forget the image of a hedgehog at a ballet class. Like, that is brilliant.
That's how I felt. It was just like, I'm not built for this. But then I did it, and I was fine.
Yeah. More capable than you thought. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I get joy from making you laugh. That was good for me.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, audience, for joining us today. And I love that we have reestablished that part of preventing burnout, especially at the executive level, is learning how to really tap into that authenticity and create that atmosphere of safety, both for yourself, for the other executive members of the team, as well as for your staff.
Yeah.
So crucial. All right.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day. Thank you, Terry.
Bye.